Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Assist Mode. I'm so excited to share with you a little bit more about a new game that's coming out called Pokemon Pokopia. You might have heard of it before. It's going to be released in just 3 days on March 5th, 2026. So if you are new here and you enjoy deep dives into RPGs, UX design, accessibility, and Japanese games, please give me a subscribe. I appreciate your support. Alright, let's dig into Pokemon Pokopia. Here's everything we know so far. Pokemon Pokopia is a cozy life simulation game published by the Pokemon Company. You play as a Ditto who's lost its trainer. Early on, Ditto encounters Professor Tangrowth, who acts as a guide and progression advisor. Your goal is to rebuild in an abandoned area and bring Pokemon and eventually people back into the community. Unlike traditional Pokemon games, there are no battles. There's no gym circuit, no competitive ladder. The core gameplay loop revolves around building, decorating, and attracting Pokemon to habitats, learning abilities from them, completing quests, and gradually revitalizing the town. You begin with a single player area. So starting in a contained environment like this really helps to lower cognitive load and that intimidation factor for beginners. Rather than overwhelming the player with a big, sprawling map, you're given a small and manageable space to start with and learn the core game mechanics within. From a UX perspective, this scaffolds the onboarding so that new systems are introduced more gradually. All the items in the game that you can use are stored within Ditto. So this central inventory design eliminates scattered storage states early on. You can pick up multiple items at once, which reduces repetitive input strain. So for example, like for players with motor fatigue or repetitive injuries, this minimized repeated button pressing is really helpful to make the game more accessible. For example, when you use Rock Smash to break objects, nothing is permanently destroyed. Materials can be reused. And this is a really critical design decision because in many life sims, that destructive experimentation comes with a lot of anxiety. Like, what if I can't get this back? Or what if I use up all of my resources? So removing that permanent loss lowers distress and I think also really helps to boost creativity. You can craft more than one workbench in this game, which is pretty cool. So if you place a storage box next to a crafting table, the crafting table automatically pulls material from that storage instead of from your character inventory. This is a feature that was added on to Animal Crossing a little bit later and is only accessible once you reach a certain point within the game. So having that from the very beginning of the game is awesome UX design. This helps to remove that inventory micromanagement. So like, for example, if you need 20 wood and 5 leaves to build something, you don't need to manually transfer them first. The system will check that adjacent storage, and this will really help to reduce the friction overall. So for neurodivergent players or players who struggle with working memory load, fewer inventory steps means less cognitive fatigue. Items can also be stored in multiple ways, including by favorites. So favorite tagging is huge. A game where you can count the items over time, being able to pin frequently used objects prevents long scroll sessions. Scroll fatigue is pretty real in a lot of life sims. It can be hard to find the exact item that you need, and retrieving it as easily as possible is a great improvement. Buildings show explicitly what you need to make them and which Pokemon are required. So that visual construction is really awesome because it shows me exactly what I need and who I need to access in order to build a specific building. And that kind of inclusion in the direct UI for an object kind of just helps me feel like I can achieve that step so much easier than having to look for multiple pieces of information and then figure it all out from there. So hopefully this will help to really respect the player's time and also give more visual feedback to the player about what they need in order to craft and create in this world. Buildings function on real-world time, so this mirrors systems similar to Animal Crossing New Horizons. So real-world time systems increase that immersion, but also have to be paired with communication. So I'm expecting to see things like clocks, and countdowns as part of this game and immediately available within the UI to make it clear exactly how long I need to wait for something to be built or when certain shops or features within the game are available at specific times of day. I like for this to be very clearly defined within the game, and I'm hoping that the game will do a good job of this. Houses are larger on the inside than they appear outside, so that makes our creative space in the outside world, known as the overworld, much more efficient. But then we still have options to enter into a house and feel like we can really expand and decorate an entire big house without it feeling too cramped and cluttered. So this way, we don't have to worry about the overworld becoming overwhelmed with big houses and so forth and challenging to navigate. It's all simple and compact until we enter directly into the house. Then we have a lot of space to work with in that new scene. This helps to increase the readability and also make our interiors a little bit more complex and variable, so that if I'm playing Pokopia, I might make my houses one way, and if you're playing it, you might make your houses in another. More space gives us more options in that regard. You can also move objects freely even after placing them. So this eliminates, again, that permanence anxiety and supports experimentation. So if you're someone who struggles with spatial planning or perfectionism, knowing nothing is locked in is going to help reduce your stress. You can assign Pokemon to different homes and reassign them later. So again, this reversibility is built into the system to make it so that if you make a decision you're not happy with, you can easily reverse that. And maybe if you want to access specific Pokemon more easily, you can make them a little bit closer to the area that you're going to need to be working with them in. This game tracks something called an environment level, and this is each Pokemon's comfort level. Pokemon will directly tell you what they need to increase comfort. Specific habitat conditions, items, interactions. When their needs are fulfilled and they experience a positive interaction, their comfort increases. So from a UX perspective, this is really explicit feedback. It closes the loop. Rather than abstract happiness meters where you receive actionable information, this supports players who prefer clear goals over implicit social cues. One thing that's also really nice about these habitats is that they are system driven. So certain Pokemon will appear in specific environments, very similar to the original games if you played them. Weather also influences appearance. So the time of day when you are actually playing this game in the real world is also going to make an impact as to which Pokemon you can encounter. Similar to different mechanics, like in Animal Crossing, for example, you can find certain fish or certain bugs at very specific times of day. So the game, I'm hoping, will be able to clearly display which Pokemon you can find in specific habitats, and also which Pokemon you'll need to log in at certain times of day in order to obtain or meet in the game. So when it comes to this, it's really important that the UI clearly displays the information to the player so that they can know what's expected and what they need to do as a player in order to meet all of the available Pokemon and access all of their skills. I like this level of transparency, for example, when it comes to like Scyther, which is confirmed for our tree-shaded grass habitat. And the system really tells you what environmental parameters must be met, reducing that trial and error frustration. Abilities are central to progression for this game. There are 8 main abilities so far. Scyther teaches Cut, and Cut is the only way to access certain materials. Charmander lights burnable objects. Drillbur's rototiller allows you to pick up and move plants. Lapras allows you to surf. Dragonite enables flight. Squirtle's water gun has specific cross-sectional water effect. And Scyther can also help you to build up some lumber along the way. What I like about the water gun cross section is that instead of like generic watering like we have with one specific tile in a lot of our life sim games, this allows you to visually see an area of effect pattern that is very readable for spatial feedback based on the block system of the game itself. So for those of us like myself who process things very visually, this is a clearly defined effect zone so that I don't have to worry about lining things up in a specific way. I can just go for it and get multiple blocks watered at one time. I think this is pretty cool, actually. So now when it comes to transformation, there is a time limit and it does require food to replenish. And this creates a way to do resource management without punishment. And I think that the big challenge here really comes down to the clarity. Like, are the cooldown timers very visible, very readable? If that information is too hidden or subtle, I think it might confuse the player, even upset them when they lose an ability that they weren't expecting to lose out on all of a sudden. So having those timers so that they are visualized very clearly to the player, especially when the time is about to run out, I think will be really a helpful way for players to be able to keep themselves organized, not just in terms of their item management and their space management, but their time management as well. I think that's a pretty fun feature. However, when it comes to accessibility, I always caution against solely using time-based mechanics, as there are players with specific motor needs who may require a little bit longer to implement some of these features. So if they offer like something along the lines of an assist mode, turning off the time-based mechanic for some players so that they can continue to use whatever tool they've been working on for as long as they need to, I think would be an awesome improvement, if at all possible. All right, so when it comes to the Pokeballs, there are Pokeballs in this game. Some are collectible and some are functional, and it's very important for us to be able to distinguish between which Pokeballs we can use and which Pokemons are just, available for us to collect. So some of us who like to collect things will have them all available, but for those of us who aren't as big of collectors like myself, I want to just know what I can use right away. You can ask up to 5 Pokemon to follow you and bring them into specific areas. And these Pokemon can perform multiple tasks. So this is a little bit like bringing specific tools with you in Animal Crossing. This is just going to allow you to really ensure that you have what you need in a specific area so that when you enter a new area, there's still some Pokemon from your previous area available to help you out. So the Pokédex is going to function here as a central hub, which can track your Pokémon abilities, habitats, requests, which is kind of like the quest system in this game, camera mode, and environment levels. I see this as a really awesome command center that enables functional access to all of the features within the game so that you can stay on top of everything in one centralized place. And this is exactly what we need from a strong menu. Centralizing functions helps also to reduce the menu depth so that deep menu nesting is something that we don't have to really dig through in order to get what we need. It should all be available just within a few taps and very quickly for players. So the Habitat Dex, we know, shows undiscovered Pokemon and their attraction conditions, and this helps to guide our discovery so that we still have a little mystery about, where we'll encounter these Pokemons or, how we're going to see them, but we also will know kind of what we need in order to get them when it's time to get them. Really important to cover also is multiplayer support for up to 4 players locally or online. 2-player game share is confirmed, so you can game share the cartridge. And the original Switch can actually do a preview play with friends. And anything visitors build will remain in the host's town. So if you are working from your original Switch 2, you can host your Pokopia town, your Pokopia world, and actually allow your friends to come in, even if you're not online, in order to play in your world, similar to like a Minecraft server or something like that. So if you are a player with very limited time, but you still want to have your friends interacting with this village and feeling like they can come in, you might be even living on totally different time zones. They can be coming in while you're asleep and so forth, and you can come into their village when you're awake. This just really, I think, increases the accessibility. We don't have to worry about a time crunch to load. We don't have to worry about a specific player already having everything, set up for that play session. Instead, they can just get their game set up, their hub really set up so that people can access it whenever they need to, and it's not necessarily time bound. There's a lot of complication that comes with this, however, from a development perspective, as players who are invited into the town will have the ability to override things potentially. And so, it could be that you are opening up your world and you open it up and realize it's totally different. Someone came in and changed everything. So, having the ability to maybe revert back to your world as it was previously based on a previous save, or having some, limitations for players who join your world as to what they can and can't do within that world, similar to like Animal Crossing while you're playing a multiplayer, can be something that's really helpful, depending on who you've invited to your Pokopia world. So, when it comes to Pokopia, what are your thoughts about this game? I really love that Pokopia emphasizes transparency, reversibility, and that adjacency system. It's minimizing the number of clicks that we need to access these items so that the menus can be expansive but also easily accessible. And I like in general that the game has a very welcoming energy to it. It's cute. It is inviting. It's a game that you feel like you can play and not need to be a complete video game master in order to master. So for those of you who are not gamers, what are your thoughts about Pokopia? Does it seem like a game that you could jump into right away? And does it feel accessible to you as a non-gamer? I know for me, I've been playing games for a long time, so it's a little hard for me to understand things from non-gamers' perspective. But when it comes to approachability, this is something that's incredibly important to bring new gamers in and people who might have traditionally felt that video games weren't for them but are curious about them. I really love the idea of making it a straightforward game with simple mechanics that are scalable and slowly expanding over time so that players who are interested in the game and interested in investing further won't feel like it's just too much and reduces that overall intimidation factor from the very beginning of the game, which I know a lot of people experience, especially with Pokemon games, which are heavy in game mechanics and can often be super overwhelming to new players. I think of the instance of someone that I know who never actually knew that you could trade out Pokemon from your original party. Of course, now I'm referring to the mainline games, not to the Pokopia games, but just kept it with the original 6 Pokemon that they kept, had a unexpected Nuzlocke playthrough because they just really maybe missed the one dialogue that popped up that showed, okay, you can transfer out your Pokemon. So, when it comes to making sure that all of the mechanics for this game are very clearly outlined to the player so they can understand exactly what they can do at specific points, and also opening up that progression slowly but surely so that the player can feel like, man, I've really mastered these 2 or 3 game mechanics. Now it's time for me to try out a couple more and see if I can add more onto my skill set and so forth, until they feel like they've really mastered the techniques of the game such that their creativity can come through more clearly. All right, Pokemon Pokopia is coming out in 3 days. I'm definitely going to be hitting this one up. It seems like such a fun game. So cool, so creative, and a really interesting concept. I have expressed a couple of criticisms before with regard to specifically the Ditto's design. I think I'm not the only one who feels this way. But that being said, from what I've seen of the game mechanics, this is really, really cool and something that has never really been done before in the Pokemon series. So I'm really just excited to see how they're able to combine these genres to create a new type of game that honestly is right up my alley. I absolutely love both Pokemon and Animal Crossing. I'm a big fan of Minecraft as well. So if this game pulls it off right, it will definitely become one of my main heavy rotation games. I'm certain of it. What do you all think about Pokopia? Let me know your comments below. And for now, I hope you all have an awesome rest of your day. Thank you so much for joining me, and I will catch you on the flip side. Bye for now.